Marcelo Ferrarini is Senior Manager Global Insights at Lego, leading the Insights agenda for Western Europe and emerging markets to inform go-to-market choices across brand, media portfolio, and channel activation in those regions. Marcelo, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Guta, for the invite.
Tell me a little bit about your role at Lego. What does a Global Insight Manager do?
Yeah, so my responsibility is basically to sit down with the marketing and sales teams, as you've mentioned, from Western Europe and emerging markets as a region, and discuss with them what are their key priorities, their key strategic choices, and most importantly, their key business questions, so that we can sit down. I can bring that to my team. We can sit down and put a project together to answer those business questions. So that's mainly my day to day.
Nice. So you work a little bit on demand for the business necessities that are currently
Yeah,
happening in the company.
I think there are two main streams. One is really looking at the longer term. So it will be connected with the business strategy processes. So we'll be looking to, what are the priorities for 2025, 2024, and then organize studies projects that answer those needs, mainly looking at things that we don't currently know. So where are the knowledge gaps? But at the same time, we're obviously also looking at what's currently ongoing. So the key questions that, maybe a pandemic happens, or mainly now in the UK here, given the cost of living. So those are things that happen without any planning that we also need to kind of focus on and try to answer and understand what's going on.
Nice. And how do you balance this data-driven insights with then once you have all this data with the creative thinking to develop effective marketing campaigns or effective strategies?
Yeah, I think as a good consultant would say, it really depends on, I think, the stage that you are, right? So if you are in the very early stage of, for example, defining the business question or the business objective, I would say that we would rely much more on the quant data, or sizing models, looking at commercial opportunities. But from there, I think when you start to get into the creative strategy, we will rely much more on a direct qualitative input from kids and parents or shoppers, depending on the campaign. We rely a lot on understanding the zeitgeist, the trends that are kind of shaping the area that we are working towards. And I think from there, in the middle of this process, it's really up to the creative team, and then it's all about bringing together the relevant people. Maybe we have an internal agency that works on most of. It's an in-house agency that works on most of our campaigns and comms, and they create assets. So it will be up to us together with them to shape those. And I think then data comes back into place afterwards for tracking. So then there's a real critical role in kind of measuring, tracking, all those things that you're probably incredibly part of your world.
Aware of it.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it's interesting, this balance of not everything is a hard data decision to make. So there are type of business decisions that obviously will need more quantitative data, but then you shift towards qualitative to understand people and behavior, and then back to how it impacted business KPIs, probably, and other hard metrics. I'll call it that way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's probably one of the most important and hardest lessons that I was taught. No one actually taught me, but just through experience, because it's very easy to get blind. I think it's very easy to get blinded by data, mainly when you have a background that is more into analytics, into research, into business management, for example. But it's very hard to find at least a creative insight that comes from quant. I'm still kind
True.
of looking for that example. It usually comes from just talking to people, I think.
Yeah, in the previous podcast, we were talking to an expert in AI that's using AI to generate communication and assets, and we were talking about it how only humans can really extract some strategic insight from culture and read context in a way that generates something new that can truly connect with people and with consumers. It's something that you can't, if you can be overwhelmed by the quantity of data and then not be able to translate this into something that really connects with people, because it needs to be something new and really true to the culture.
Yeah, yeah, and I heard that interview, by the way. It was really, really good, and it reminds me actually of when we were working, I think, with Google, and that was back in the time when I was working at a brand consultancy, and I remember Google was heavily investing on a specific area, um, to offer more qualitative insights for
Yeah.
different customers, because they realized also that, I think the sizing of things gets you just so far. After that, you need one, those more qualitative, and just kind of conversational or observing what's happening around you, and just people to make those connections. That makes a lot of
True.
sense.
And talking about the data that you track and this balance between quantity and quality, as a global brand leader, how do you stay ahead of the competition and adapt? Because everything is changing. Obviously, your competitors and generations. So we have kids. You saw. I don't know if mostly to kids, but every new generation, every 5 years, every 10 years, kids look very different from what they looked like in I don't know, that's my point of view, but maybe I'm wrong. So you have this changing consumer preferences, you have generational shifts, you have competition. How do you stay ahead, and what data do you track to inform those decisions?
Hmm. That's a good question, and I think there are probably different ways and different businesses that do that in a particular way. For example, one would be to look at what competitors are doing, or to what new players in an industry are doing. I think the position of the Lego Group very much comes from Julia, the CMO, and
Mhm.
her view is very, very focused on looking and understanding the consumer. So just speaking with kids, understanding what are their current interests, and how their behaviors are changing for the future. It's really laser focused on that, so that we can, I think the assumption there is that by doing that, we will be better placed to lead the category and create the changes that need to happen ourselves. So maybe a few examples would be,
Yeah, I would love if you could give more color on, yeah, what
yeah,
that means.
yeah. So I think, for example, when a lot of marketing activations started to, go from just classic campaigns that you outstream on high reach media like TV, YouTube,
Hmm.
to also content. So we created the Lego series. So it's a Lego Masters, which is a TV series. It's like a reality show. I don't know if we have that streaming in Brazil, but we have in many countries around the world, which different kids and adults,
But does
they
it goes on streaming on video on demand?
both on video on demand, but also TV channels.
All right.
So you have some flexibility to watch in more platforms, basically.
Okay.
And it's content, it's a piece of content that's owned by us together, built together with partners, the media channels. and that kind of, I think, in my view, helped to adjust to that appreciation for content from brands. And maybe another example, well, two other examples. One, Lego games, so building partnerships with gaming platforms, knowing how kids are just spending most of their digital lives and their actually whole lives in digital in gaming spaces. And I think most recently, I think the latest example is the partnership between Lego and Epic Games. So the company that owns Fortnite, for example, and what we are doing there is really adapting to, again, kids spending more time on those platforms and trying to create something that they will enjoy and that makes sense for the brand.
That's very interesting. Do you see those examples as marketing activation, or is it almost like a business unit itself that needs to generate revenue in any way?
Very, very good question, and I think it really depends on the business model. I think for the Lego Group is mostly just I would classify as marketing activation. They would, I think, more people would just classify as a business activation. We need to be on those places. We need to be in those environments, in those games. We have Lego Minecraft. We have activations with Minecraft, a specific set of franchises that with Super Mario, for example. And I think they are just they're just matter for us to remain relevant, really,
Sure.
to
Yeah.
kids. And because of that, I would consider we won't be necessarily, as far as I know, be making money out of it. It's just going to help to build the core of our business, which is selling sets.
Nice. And yeah, it's very, very interesting how campaigns are not really campaigns anymore. And that changes how we measure everything, because it's not about generating a message and talking to people in a massive channel, but the brand is everywhere in all these different shapes. So obviously, it gives a layer of complexity towards measuring and obviously making those decisions as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably the one of the biggest challenges for marketeers today is how do you track um, marketing effectiveness, and most importantly, those longer term those initiatives focused on building brand equity. Whoever solves that in a sleek and nice way will be in a very good place, in my view, in a couple of years.
I know you were laughing because you know that's what we are building. Uh, but let me ask you something different. We were consultants, not together, but we have this past experience, shared past experience, and I always talked a lot about consistency, and it's almost like someone there saying you need to do this and that, and we think we know everything when we are consultants. But uh, there's obviously a thin line between that when does the brand start to lose itself. So you're producing content, you're producing games on partnerships, and you are this traditional legacy brand that obviously need to adapt and continue to adapt to those changing trends. Uh, how do you balance this, staying true to the core brand value and where to evolve? Is there a process? Is there a philosophy behind what things I'm sure you say no to a bunch of things because everyone might look for Lego and propose things. So how do you make decisions and balance and stay true to the brand, but also make sure it is evolving?
Yeah, and I think, and to refer to something that you've mentioned before, I think it's really important also to understand what's really changing and what's not necessarily changing. and what's changing faster and what's not changing as fast. Because you've mentioned, we I think the examples I gave before related a lot to media consumption changes that might change faster. The same with, for example, I think retail consumption behavior. So the move from a more, I don't know, physical stores to more online shopping, or to what everyone calls
Now
now
it's
omni.
mixed. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
omni. The buzzword word of my sales colleagues, omni channel shopping. So I think this also helps. But on the other hand, kids' needs, their play needs, and their passions, in my view, and I think that's another big learning after 3 years with the Lego Group, is they really slow moving. You're gonna have hot topics that will become like a really hot thing in 1 year, like Pokemon cards, or fidget spinners. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, I do.
But like big passions like animals and nature, dinosaurs, cars, vehicles, or play needs, the need to socialize or play in a competitive way. Those things, they're really slow. They really change in a slow pace, in my view, or they don't change at all. So I think this also helps us understand what to, just um, focus on delivering against those needs that will be there with uh, the topic that is hot at the moment. But I think that said, another thing that gives, I think, the Lego Group competitive advantage is that it really has a really strong culture. And it really has, as you've mentioned, we've worked as consultants before and with different companies where it was really hard to find if there was any kind of DNA, or it would be things like, oh, we want to be, market leaders, or the customer is really
Epic.
important. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A human.
Exactly, human. Yeah, we're a people business. We care very much about humanity, and innovation is very important. So human
Yeah.
forward is like, yeah. So so we do have a brand platform that someone wrote, and it's there. But I think everyone kind of has a very strong gut feeling for what the brand means. So to bring back to your example, to the example of the partnership between Epic and the Lego Group, I think that's a good example of something that is relatively new. So it's an environment that's still growing a lot. There's still lots of unknown. There's a ton of risk, but the way we're doing it is very consistent with the values of the brand. So a priority, a massive priority, is kids' safety and quality. They're very simple words, but I think the brand, the executives, the leadership, they take it extremely serious.
Mm.
So I think one of the, this is all public, public at the moment. If you read the press releases, that the objective of the partnership is really to build gaming environment, or a metaverse, whatever you call it, that is safe for kids, for them to kind of enjoy, have a good time, connect with friends, because that's already what they are doing. So that's a little bit of
Got it. Yeah.
combining relevance and credibility and authenticity.
And I love this idea of rooting the brand in the culture, because then everyone in the company knows what to do and what decision to make, because it's natural. Culture is the thing that happens naturally in the company. So when the brand really resonates with the culture, I think we see consistency. Otherwise, it's just marketers trying to convince everyone not to speak, not to use this tone of voice, or not to do this type of action or partnership.
Yeah.
Uh, there are obviously challenges of being the leader in a category. Uh, what data do you track, or how is this concern or not? Do you have this? Well, we need to stay leaders. Uh, is it something that's in the culture as well, or in your data concerns and routines?
I think it goes again back to, I think, the vision from from the CMO, and obviously
Hmm.
there is an intention to be the leader. I think Lego became the Lego Group became the the leader in the toy industry in 2018, if I'm not wrong, 19 surpassing Mattel. But as I've mentioned, there's a lot of focus on, and this is gonna sound like something that the CMO would say in a panel, in a summit workshop,
It's
but
a
it's
good
very
sign
true.
when you kind of already know what you would say.
Yeah. But it's very true. There's a lot of focus on the consumer, so reaching more kids and being relevant to them, making sure that the brand is really, really strong. We're scoring high in there. We're leading those metrics. We have a great relationship with customers as well. So meaning the retailers that we work with. One to be a bit more tangible. One example is that we do look at market share, but I would say that the metric around active consumers, so basically penetration, is even there's even more emphasis to that. So there's one way that the kind of the focus on consumers versus
It's not about awareness anymore. It's how they are. It's actually impacting behavior.
yeah, and it's not necessarily about being the biggest versus other players. It's about being the
Mhm.
most relevant to the kids that we're serving, kids and adults
Yeah,
that we're serving.
there's this study that you obviously know uh, that says that the larger the penetration is, the more frequent people purchase the products from the brand. So, if right, so it's interesting because this will always also probably lead to more sales per consumer.
I think that's the assumption. That's
Yeah,
for sure the assumption.
sounds true. Sounds like, yeah.
Sounds like it.
Anyways, uh, I'm saying that too. How do you use brand insights? So you have this other challenge that is um, you have spikes, you have seasons, you have Christmas, you have Children's Day. At the same time, kids, they have birthdays all year long. So how do you use brand insights to maintain a strong brand presence throughout the year, and obviously in the seasons as well?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think we're very different to what other companies would do, to be honest. I think it's about, tracking those occasions, sizing those occasions. Obviously, the toy industry in general is very depends a lot on the season, mainly what we call in season, which is the final years, the final months of the year. That's where a lot of the business is at, and there will be a lot of preparations for that. But I wouldn't say we necessarily do a lot of different things. I think what we do is pay attention to when those things change. So, for example, with lockdowns during COVID, that all of that got a little bit messed up because you got periods in the middle of the year where a lot of people were inside, and then people started buying earlier, for example, just because they were
Interesting.
home and Lego was a
They
really
needed an
relevant.
activity, yeah.
They needed something to do. Yeah.
And at
Um,
the same time, they probably didn't have a Christmas dinner or whatever
e-
tradition it is that people do in
exactly.
these countries. Yeah.
Exactly. Or, for example, now that there is a new audience for the whole toy industry, which is adults, which is probably the fastest growing audience by far, 18 plus adults. So that also changes the seasonality a little bit, I would say, because it doesn't rely so much on that big,
It's
there's
not about gifts. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
self purchase.
Exactly. And those are the kids that grew up with the brand, probably.
I think there's a mix, interestingly.
Really?
I think you're gonna have a lot of those that are kids that grew up with the brand. But I think the adults team is doing such an amazing job, and it's for everyone that is listening, I would really recommend having a look at the portfolio because you will not believe, if you're not too close, what the teams are launching. And there's something relevant for all passions. If you're into music, if you're into nature, if you're into a specific TV show or series like Marvel or Star Wars, there will be an amazing build for adults, and it's great. There's, I think, one that is really big at the moment. It's the flower bouquet, which are made of Lego, and they're just an awesome little gift for someone. So I think there's a little bit of a mix. There's also kind of new fans that are discovering Lego for the first time as something that is not necessarily a toy, but a hobby for an adult.
Yeah, it's interesting to buy your first Lego when you are an adult already.
It is.
At the same time, it's very relevant to today's culture because we have all these millennials and Gen Zs that are not, they are not binded to demographics anymore. So we are not purchasing the stuff that we should be, or I don't know, consuming things that should be for us and more about interesting. And all this screen time and stuff like that that leads people to do more concrete, tangible stuff. So nice, interesting.
Exactly.
Do you do you feedback the creative team? Like you said, you have the internal agency, in-house agency. Uh, do they test like messaging campaigns, or do you go for Christmas like this is our Christmas positioning or concept, or is it something that goes back with data and then iterates? And how is the role of feedback, data feedback in creative efforts?
Yeah, and I'll have to answer based on what I know from my colleagues' work.
Yeah,
That
it's
there will
not
be colleagues.
exactly
Yeah,
your role.
yeah. That there will be colleagues working specifically with that, but that there is some feedback, some pre creative tests, and I think it's an always on discussion in terms of what's the right balance. I
Because you need
think
some exposure and consistency for people to really understand the
ex-
message.
exactly, and sometimes something that if you test, for example, something really early, just an idea, that's not a good thing, because
It's
when
not
you
a
have
valid
more high,
test.
yeah, when you have more high fidelity on the execution, maybe in the markets it's gonna communicate something completely different, and the idea translated into the actual campaign, the actual video is something different. So I think there's a lot of kind of there is obviously a concern about testing, but also an understanding that there's a lot of caveats and considerations, like not testing something that
Yeah.
is really early and all of that.
Not very simple. So
Yeah, there's a lot of debate in the UK actually, which I think is really healthy around this topic. How healthy it is, and I think it's good for everyone.
yeah, that's very an important discussion. You once told me something that stuck with me, that not every consumer is in the market for the product right now. So what more a more philosophical question, what do you understand as the role of branding for both? Because if you think of someone that is in the market, so maybe it's
Mhm.
season, Christmas season or something like that, some marketers would say it's a performance moment. So you just need to convince consumers to buy something, and that's performance. So what's the role of brand in the moment of the purchase, when the consumer is in market, but also when you are talking to people that maybe are not, they're just on a streaming device, a streaming platform, and they will watch something about Lego or play a game. So what's the role of brand in those two moments?
I think the beautiful thing about branding is exactly that it plays into those two moments. So I think the 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 thing that I said, it's from a professor from the Earn Burn Bass, that very complicated name institute.
Yeah, the Australians
Yeah,
one.
the Australians. Yeah, I think his name is John Dawes, and from his study, it's something like 95% of any brand's consumer base at any point will not be in market to buy something. So basically, if you do a promotional campaign, you're only speaking with 5%, which is a really scary small number, which are already thinking about buying something. So you're kind of sometimes even giving a discount or a price promotion or anything to someone that was already willing to buy something. But I think the beauty of branding is exactly that it speaks to those 95%, whereas perhaps a more sales focused performance campaign will only speak or mostly speak to this 5%. uh, I think there's also a good debate around, I don't think a brand campaign is only building top of the funnel. You also have brand campaigns that convert somehow. Actually, I was reading a recent study showing that a good sign of a long-term performance of any brand campaign is if it generates short-term results. So if the brand campaign, even if it's not even talking about product or features or a discount or a promotion, if it is able to generate some sales spike, something, it doesn't need to be strong, in the first 4 or 5 weeks after the campaign, it's a great sign that it's going to continue generating some sort of impact in the next 6 to 12 months.
That's
Um,
very interesting because it's like you impacted those 5% into buying something, and you'll see the impact on the other
yeah,
95% in the
yeah,
following
yeah,
weeks.
yeah, and that's the job of the brand, is to create. And again, I think marketing is a game of probabilities. It's always about slightly increasing the chances of someone thinking about you when they are at the supermarket. And to do that, there's no other way around it. You need high reach branding, a great emotional branding. That's the only way people will, have a chance to remember you. Oh, I've seen that logo. I've connected that to the thing that's on shelf. Or even if it's a B2B offer, if you get that sales, I know you talk a lot about this. If you get that, cold call, if there is a little bit of that background information that you got from a brand campaign, you probably have a little bit more chance to pick that versus a competitor that you haven't heard, or that you have no kind of necessarily link with. So yeah, I
I
think
love the
that's
use of the word emotional because often people would think, and mostly when you have an engineer as the CMO, they will think it's rational, and it's not. Yeah.
even the engineering, the good CMOs. I think Fernando Machado was the CMO from Burger King, and then like he went on doing a lot of fantastic jobs. He's an engineering, but the biggest advocate of kind of creative campaigns. And I think one thing that helps is understanding the science behind it. That's why I really, really try to encourage everyone to understand a little bit. You don't need to go deep, but a little bit of the science behind marketing. Because when you understand that, you understand that there's no other way, or there's no better and more effective way of creating campaigns other than being emotional, because that's what has a higher chance of people remembering your logo, and increasing the predisposition for them to buy in the future. No one will remember features, or the XYZ battery um, time. Maybe that's relevant, right when they're choosing in the last mile of their purchase journey between one or another, but it's most likely that they've already made the choice in their minds, and they're just looking for evidence to support that decision that they've made before,
Yeah,
hopefully
exactly.
based on an emotional
Emotion is what
interaction.
moves. Emotion is what move people. So yeah. And everyone that understands. So I think that's the main challenge in marketing right now is to bring science into it, but not to lose yourself in numbers because it's all about people, but it's about science and it's about tracking behavior. So this mix is the fine balance that we are looking for, I think.
And that's one of the beauties, I think, of science, because I think people associate science with numbers. You might need numbers to prove something through science, but the conclusion might be that you need to do more emotional stuff, or
Yeah,
you need to be more creative. That is one of the conclusions from, I think, from the recent um, you know discoveries and studies released by kind of those neo marketing scientists or geeks. All of the good ones, they will converge around those points. You need to be creative, because you need to be branded. You have to have those icons, logos, or things that people will remember from your brand. Otherwise, it doesn't matter, because they can't associate when they are in the moment of purchase. You need high reach. So if you go with your very performance focused targeted communication within digital channels, you're just reaching a very, very small number, and you're not increasing penetration. And if brands grow through getting more customers, the way to do that is with a campaign or an activation or something that reaches a lot of people and that is emotional. So that's why I love understanding those things. I can go back to my business friends that graduated with me and say, look, I knew this all along, but now I can prove it. That's the beauty.
exactly. I have the same feeling. I'm trying to say this all over. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I'm excited to the future of marketing. In that sense, still, what is your vision for the future of marketing, and how do you see the role of marketers evolving in the years to come?
I think there are a few things shaping the future. One we just discussed a lot, which is this really, I think it's a revolution in marketing science. I think it's great. I think everyone that loves the discipline will benefit from it, and I really encourage everyone to learn the basics, and to understand the foundations of that kind of revolution of marketing science. You can get those via articles in the internet, or there's a few books like How Brands Grow for thinking fast and slow. So I think that's one thing. I think that's gonna shape the future. The other thing is more of an external point around the fragmentation of media. So it's no news. Everyone that works in an agency or with a brand is very self-aware, but I think it's only going to continue. And it's really hard, mainly for big brands, because they are not structured to respond to that fragmentation. It's really scary, because you're not going to have that cannonball of a TV anymore to drive that precious thing, which is the high reach media. Maybe the streaming channels will have that, maybe TikTok, but there's a limit to how emotional they can be. So I think understanding, really understanding the craft needed for those different media will be really important. And maybe a final one, which I was really thinking with myself, if it's not just hype, and maybe the latest episode of the podcast that you recorded kind of helped me make up my mind. And I'm no specialist, but I do think that AI, differently from some other things, I do think it's gonna impact the industry. I'm not sure if necessarily in the most exciting way, but in terms of driving productivity, it's going to have a massive impact. So I think if you're trying to plan ahead, paying attention to those three things: marketing science, media fragmentation, and understanding the craft and how AI will impact asset development and media planning. I think that would be really, really important.
That's great. I love this answer. So well structured. And I agree that AI will change things. I think it's the same scale of the internet in terms of we have no idea, but it will have a big impact. And at the same time, maybe communication will be more effective because we'll be able to test a lot of things. So we'll see an evolution. I don't know how exactly, but probably we'll be able to reach people in a more effective way and connect with people in a more effective way. Probably,
Yeah.
maybe pick the channels better, or I don't know. Uh, let's talk about your article that I love, the brand renaissance one. I think it could be a manifest of our era in marketing. Uh, can you tell us for those for the people that didn't read it yet, because I really strongly recommend going. It's in your LinkedIn, right? Uh, the
Yeah,
article.
yeah, you can find it there.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you covered there, if you remember? But I think you know the general line.
Yeah, no, I do. I do. It's a slightly longer than I think I should have written it, but it just converged on a lot of things that I felt were kind of impacting the industry. But it basically the main thesis is that I do think that there is a renaissance coming, a brand renaissance coming, and what it means is I think there will be in the next 5 to 10 years more investments, resources allocated, and capital allocated to building and developing brand equity. So by brand equity, I mean this asset that is the strength of the brand in people's mind. Um, and it's almost like a comeback, right, from the maybe the Madman era, and then you have the era of brand consultancies, and then you got digital that changed things and changed the focus to I think much more focus on the short term and heaping the benefits of those channels, which there are many, but I do think there's going to be a comeback.
But now with AI and fragmented media.
Exactly, that's the thing. The reasons behind are, I think, the consolidation in competition. So you don't have necessarily just one Google or one Tesla. I think in the electric vehicles, for example, now you have many players, and there's nothing better if you're a consultant, brand consultant, there's nothing better for those services or for building brand than competition. You need to
Yeah,
be
because you build a category if you have a
yes,
bunch of brands.
yes, and then it becomes more less about the product necessarily, but more about the brand. You see now Tesla famously, Elon Musk was against advertising. Now he's changed
Doing
his mind and
it.
he's just doing it. So I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's a little bit of the, as I
No, the
mentioned.
Nike CEO, he mentions that in his book. He didn't think sponsoring athletes and campaigns
Yeah,
would ever work.
that's the best. I mean, he was an accountant.
I love
How
this
how
book.
how amazing!
How
How amazing
come?
is it?
Yeah.
How amazing it is.
But obviously, the more complex and developed the market is, the more brand is important. Because when
Yeah,
it's just innovation, the product can lead itself up to the early adopters. But when you need to penetrate the mass, there's no other way.
yeah, exactly.
And what led you to write this article? were there a trigger?
I think it was almost like I was very. I knew it would take some time, but I almost couldn't not write it.
Yeah,
Even because I knew that if I didn't write something, someone else would, and probably someone else did write something about it. But it was just too many things converging to one thing that I really believe, which is building strong brands for businesses, and I think it's important for culture. It's important for so many things, and um, yeah, I've seen that shift in the market, and I think also hopefully as a way to give some clarity to people that are I've been very lost with the digital kind of revolution throughout my career because you you probably felt a little bit. I don't know when you were working on as a consultant, the pressure from performance delivery and performance marketing, and you're like, do I do a whole MBA on this? Do I have to change jobs? Like what's happening here? So hopefully I think things are rebalancing now, and we're more used to we better understand digital channels. I think we big agencies are hiring for those expertises, and we better understand the role. I think this will hopefully help to better plans, better marketing plans, and
yeah.
stronger brands.
Yeah, I worked as a performance marketer before I went to brand, so I was the one that got it. Like everyone would ask me how that worked,
There you go.
but
So you're the cool kid.
I
I
was
wasn't.
one.
I
Yeah,
was the uncool kid.
I hated it. Yeah, but anyways, I think now even the performance, like quote unquote performance media, is moving towards brand. So last week I spoke at this Google event, the main event of the year, about branding,
Hmm.
and it was called the new era of branding or branding in the new era. I'm not sure.
Oh, there you
Um,
go.
and they are using their media to build brands. So YouTube, obviously. So you can use. There's no such thing as a performance media or a brand media because everything is just a media. The ones that have a more uh, they are so a few of them work more to storytelling and generate emotion, so it's better to build brands, but you could do both on both. And I think even the performance media vehicles are seeing the brand renaissance.
Exactly. I have the same feeling, and I think that's really exciting.
It's exciting, yeah. My final question is, what advice do you have for aspiring marketers who are just starting their careers, and what skill, because now they need to learn about brand performance, AI, digital, traditional, anthropology and culture and all this stuff, and what skills do you think are the most important ones for to succeed in this field?
I think the first thing is you need to understand, independent on the area that you're focusing on working, you need to understand and have the foundations of strategy. Um,
Agreed, yeah.
Even if you start with a very tactical job, um, I think if you understand strategy, you're just gonna have a higher voice in whatever company you work for. You'll be better able to explain your results, put them in context, connect your whatever you're doing with the whole business, giving a better rationale, and being able to change whatever you're doing in a more agile and better way. I think you really need to kind of have the basics of strategy, and that it's not that complicated. Everyone can. I think everyone can kind of have an understand of the basics. So I think that's one. Um, I think the other thing is I think one of the reasons why I love this is that it requires, in some level, the right and left brain uses. I don't know. I don't even know if the right and left brain is a neurological correct thing, but
If it's true or just a
I
framework.
don't know. I don't know. But we have poetic as
Yeah,
poetic
we can
license.
use the frameworks. We
Yeah,
were consultants. Yeah.
there you go. Exactly. But I do think, again, independent of the area that you are, you need to use a little bit of both. So you need to understand the commercial reality of the business that you're working on, the kind of the strategic foundations, and have a little bit of a grasp on data, at the same time as knowing how to work with a creative or having a creative vision for your brand. You don't need to be an expert in either, but you need to, I think, kind of be able to demonstrate. I think marketing or branding or that this field is one of the ones that having both of those kind of right and left brains is so important. And the third thing is that at the same time, you can there's so many different areas, so there's so much cool stuff that you can work with. You can be, to your point, a more performance marketeer. You can be a that is more analytical and more commercial, or you can be a creative brand strategist, or you can be a brand manager that is more operational. You can be a specialist in one specific channel. You can be an insights person. So I think finding that kind of area, if you're starting on, based on your skills, personality, background, I think it's also a good thing. And I think the final thing that, I know it's going to sound very stupid and very obvious, but you need to listen to the consumer. It's job number 0. And everyone will say that, and no one will do it. No one will do it. So
It's true.
you need to. And I think you can spot a great marketeer when they become more senior and all of that. When they have that sensitive to the reality, they don't get bugged by all the frameworks and structures. They manage to bring it down to what really matters, which is what is this person actually going to is actually thinking about my brand. Can I say those things? Does this has any connection to what they are currently thinking, or are they gonna, does this matter in the purchase occasion? So I think that's sensitive. It's not easy. It's not easy, but if you manage to develop that sensitive to the consumer and bring back most of the things that you're doing to how you're impacting them, I think that's the role of marketing, branding, and all the areas that are on that field.
Love it. Great. 100% agree on it. Yeah, love it. Well, so that was my final question. Where can people follow you and listen to what you're doing? I
Um,
mean, you are active on LinkedIn, if I'm not wrong.
yeah, I'm mainly active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So you can yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. It's gonna be Marcelo Ferrarini, and same in over Twitter.
Right. So thank you very much. I loved the conversation. And yeah, thanks for participation, for
Love the invite.
participating. Thank you.
Thanks, Guta. Appreciate it.